the Road Community Podcast. We are back on our NAI Hoops Report YouTube channel. We were going to just go to the round of 16 preview, but we felt like it was important to do a recap show, and so here we are, Coach. And I think as we look through the first two rounds here, kind of echoing what we said all year long, was that one, there's a lot of really good teams in the NAI, and number two, there's a lot of teams that are very similar talent-wise, and through, and I think that's why we saw all those upsets. We promised everybody that there would not be chalk all the way down, and that certainly did not happen.
Yeah, no, I mean a lot of overtime games, right? Some teams sneaking through that first night, even that was certainly pay attention to that. Some people were on the ropes that you might not have expected to be on the ropes, but they found their way through, and we're still hanging on to a lot of the teams that have proven to be premier championship contenders throughout the season are still alive. So that's fun to see as well. Going to be some great hoops in Kansas City.
Yeah, and I think that opening round is always interesting because you either come up, it seems like most teams either come up a little bit too tight or a little bit too wound up. And either way, it leads to maybe some teams. And usually it's the lower seeds that are a little bit more hyped up and ready to go.
Yeah.
And usually it's the ones, the 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds, the host schools that are, a little bit more wound tight. And that can kind of lead to maybe 20, 30 minutes of frustration for some of those coaches. But then, like you said, a lot of them end up pulling it out anyway.
Yeah, and you get, there's experience plays in. Some of these teams have a lot more experience or either from the coaching side or the player side or both. But there are some usual suspects that somehow find their way to win those overtime or close games in the opening rounds and make their way through. And a lot of the host teams, again, found their way through, and a handful didn't. But yeah, it's definitely can be a nerve-wracking time. It can also be a pretty exciting time. So it's a fun weekend of hoops.
Yeah, and survive and advance, right? That's the name of
Yeah.
the name of this time of year. And we didn't
Mhm.
have as many buzzer beaters, I will say that, as we did in the conference tournament. We had a
Right.
lot of games go down the wire, and we had a lot of people missing shots late. So
Yeah.
potential buzzer beaters, but unfortunately, we saw some teams that one thing about it, and I'll update you because I know you're not a big social media guy, but one of the worst parts about this time of year too is you see all the emotions on the losing team side as well. And
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of locker room picks. I know that players that are in tears, and a lot of careers coming to an end, like we've been talking about too. It's fun for those teams advancing and surviving and advancing, but also the adverse side of that is a lot of emotions the other way as well, as people see their careers come to an end.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of memories that happen in a season, and even if it's just a short-lived national tournament, there's still going to be great memories for those kids. And in the moment, it's really hard, but you get a few days and weeks removed from that for the ones whose careers are over. They're going to look back and know they accomplished something really big this season and had a big impact on their school and programs, culture, and history. So those stories are what carry with kids, 10 years down the road, 15 years from now. But in the moment, it doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, definitely not. And just transitioning over into some of our different quadrants here, highlighting the Naismith quadrant first. It was one where Grace was one of those teams that for about 20, 30 minutes was on the ropes with Washington Adventist. I thought Washington, Adventist. I talked about earlier in the preview show that they had the size to match up. You just didn't know if they had the talent to, go toe to toe for 40 minutes, and they did for 30. But that last 10 minutes, Grace started stringing it together. And then the opposite side of that bracket, you had a Florida Memorial team who ended up losing to Evangel, the 15 seed. And Evangel is a tough team. You talked about experience early. This is a team that almost the same exact team that has made 3 straight tournament appearances. They won a game last year, and now they're the first 15 seed to make it to Kansas City. So we'll have more on the preview show on them. But I thought that was kind of the opening round there. You saw Evangel as a 15 seed. You saw Lois Clark State as an 11 seed come through. You had Baker as a 10 seed, come through, and then it was kind of shock all the way through the Naismith through that. But some of those double seed or double digit seeds got a couple wins in the opening round in the Naismith quadrant.
Yeah, a lot of close games in that quad too. I mean, that Oregon Tech Kaiser game was overtime. Northwestern Oregon Tech then was, Oregon Tech goes back to back nights overtime, and then a 1 point loss to Northwestern. So, it all comes down to that. Grace, I mean, they found their stride, right, and that carried into the second night, and it was curtains. I mean, almost from the jump that second night, they really uh, put a stamp on it, right? I think it's they're certainly one of the teams you look to Kansas City and say we got a lot to talk about come the show later this week about that matchup that they have and some ingredients in there. But yeah, fun quadrant, fun to see, like you said, Evangel team, and that's back to what we were talking about, right? Experience, and you got an experienced group. They've been there before. They've tasted defeat in that regional round, and now they've tasted victory, and they're making travel plans to get to Kansas City. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about the NEI bracket is that even though this is the first time a 15 seeds made it, really outside of maybe the one seeds and most of the twos for the most part, in that opening round, we've seen some ones and twos lose in the second round to get to Kansas City, but that opening round game usually most of them get through. And the Evangels came out tough. We got. You talked about some experience from the coaching standpoint. You got a Lois Clark State team with Austin Johnson, who's
Yeah.
he's made it to a national championship game before. He's made it to a Final Four as a head coach, or a Fab Four as a head coach, and I know he's got a younger team, but they really showed some toughness through that bracket as well as they knocked off Hope and then went on got a true road game, true road win over Montana Tech.
Yeah, Montana Tech, man, I've talked about them a few times this year. I like that team a lot. So, really tough road for them and two really quality wins. So they're certainly coming alive at the right time.
Yeah, and just talk about one more Cascade team. I thought it was a interesting stat line is that Oregon Tech is going to finish their season with 6 losses on the year, and all 6 of those losses are to teams that are in the Sweet 16. So,
Wow.
heck of a year by them. I know that they had a couple battles. They had some really close games almost throughout the year. They were on the winning side there late as they knocked off Lois Clark State and College of Idaho to win the Cascade tournament. But unfortunately, they couldn't get through that weekend as they were one of those teams that we talked about earlier that had a wide open shot that just did not go in there for the win. But tough group. I know that they'll be back. They return all 5 starters, so it'll be interesting to see them next year.
Oh
I'm not
yeah,
going
they're gonna be good.
yeah, not going to talk about matchups too much here, Coach. But I know that the little teaser for next week. I'm sure we'll be talking about the Elijah Malone and Alex Van
Oh
Kalesbeek
yeah,
matchup coming
yeah,
up. So make sure
yeah.
you
We'll
guys.
have some commentary on that.
Yep, I'm excited about that. I knew you would be too, but just with a little teaser out there as we go to the Naismith bracket. But jumping down to the Kramer quadrant here, this one was one that it's so funny, Coach. I feel like this is almost every year where when you have a double digit seeded team win, they almost always play another team that is a double seeded digit in the second round, and somehow it always works out. It worked out in both of these, and the Naismith and the Kramer. I'm talking about Bethel team who, coming out of the Crossroads League. I ended up as the fifth team there and got the 11 seed, and they end up knocking off LSU Alexandria, a team that played really good basketball as they won the Red River Athletic Conference regular and tournament this year, and then just couldn't put it together against Bethel. And then you had a Central Baptist team who showed a lot of grit in that opening round game, double overtime game at Mid American Nazarene. For those that don't know, Deshaun Corprew, who was the player of the year in that league, went out in I believe the first overtime or late in the second half. I can't remember, but didn't play because he banged up his ankle. And this is a kid that just for I know NEI is a little bit different, so bear with me on this one. But this is a kid that played on the Texas Tech Final Four team in 2014, but just battled injuries his whole entire career. And I thought when he got hurt, when I saw him go down, I was like, oh no, what a way to end a career of an injury plagued career. But then he turned around and played the next night, so he looks like he's good to go. But heck of a run by Central Baptist here as well.
Yeah, yeah. Another one of the lower seeded teams as well to make it through. And like we're talking about with Evangel. So I think some of those mid level seeds, but I think once you get to 14, 15, and even 16, I think you're talking about a pretty clear disparity in that seeding is fairly accurate. So that's awesome. It's great to see a team like that get through. And like you said, for someone that's some of these individual stories inside these matchups are going to be pretty fun to uncover and talk a little bit more about those later in the week, I'm sure.
Well, and we'll jump up to Miami Gardens. I know this is a one we are very interested in because this is a Masters team that who actually had to make the same trip last year, went all the way out to or from California all the way out to Florida to play opening round and lost to St. Thomas in the opening round, and St. Thomas also went all the way to Kansas City last year. They didn't draw St. Thomas in the first round, opening round this year, but they got matched up again in that second round. And Coach, I know that you had talked about the Masters and Flomo, I believe, earlier in the year when Masters
Yeah.
actually made a trip out to Florida earlier in the year. A lot of miles on the tires there for them, but
Yeah.
they were shooting the crap out of the ball back then, and they caught fire again in Miami Gardens this week.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty tough to lose when you shoot the ball like that. I mean it's going to be a high scoring game, but I mean and St. Thomas is a good defensive team and two good programs. But yeah, we talked about like I said early in the year with Florida Memorial and Masters. That was going to be one of the key ingredients of that game was can Masters knock them in when they're shooting well. They're I would not want to play them when they're shooting well because it is very, very difficult to get stops and string stops together. When you got 3, 4 guys that can, just shoot it the way they do. I don't, when they're all clicking at the same time, it's just sit back and watch because there ain't much you can do about it. So, pretty fun group to watch, and we'll see how they do, out in a different size arena and things like that. Shooting sometimes goes away. When you get to Kansas City, it's layups
It
and free
does.
throws, and who can win the battle in the paint and the free throw line. So it'll be interesting to see how they're able to execute there.
It does. That I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I think we've brought it up, and people, I know some people on the side text us all the time and ask us if it's true. But the Kansas City, inside Municipal Auditorium, at least on the opening round games, typically are not a big shooting game. Once you get a game or two underneath your belt, then you can start opening up the nets a little bit. But we've seen teams do that. But usually the shooting percentages in those first couple games are not not very good. So we'll see if they can carry that on. I think they're one of the more talented teams left in the tournament. I think that we talk about Caleb Lowry, Ty Harper, and company. Whether they're shooting the ball or not, I mean they are a team that that are really really talented. And then we won't go too much into the future matchup here, but it's gonna be fun. Matchup with Freed Hardeman, who's one of the best defensive teams in the country, and is one of the best defensive 3-point shooting teams in the country as well. So, when you have clashing styles, it's always interesting, and we'll have more on that, I'm sure, on our preview show as well. Jumping over to the Dewar quadrant too. It was a Langston team, that we saw or we talked about defensively, no matter who they were going to get in that second round, it was going to be a little bit of clash of styles. We saw Ave get a big win against Southwestern and a shootout, 97-92 shootout, which we thought would be a shootout. We kind of talked about in the preview show. And then they turned around, and I thought Ave came out on fire and playing really good basketball in that first half against Langston and kept it close. And then Langston kind of did what they do and went on a big run to pull out the 30-point win there. But one of those other ones, and this is one where we saw an LSU Shreveport team who was a 12 seed and kind of second half of the season did not really play good basketball. But this is a team that was a top 5 team in the country early in the year. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure on one of your coaches' corners you highlighted the Langston LSU Shreveport game when they were number 2 versus number 4. So
Yeah.
we'll be talking about that one more. But as we look through, you got a Shreveport team that played really good basketball this weekend after kind of tripping their toe or stubbing their toes a little bit second half, and then they found themselves a little bit this weekend.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That'll be a really intriguing matchup, right? I mean, they have the goods to be a really, really good team. So you never know. Can they carry the momentum from last weekend into the game with Langston? I tell you what, Langston is they're every bit the part. I mean, you never want to prognosticate too much, but there's some matchups in the Final Four and in the title game that could really prove to be some just phenomenal basketball in a variety of ways. And Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see, like I said, Ave. I know we had Coach Copeland on earlier in the year, and I don't know do you know off the top of your head how many wins that program has had in tournament play or
I believe that was their first win. I believe
yeah.
I saw a post about that was their
I
first
mean,
postseason
that
win.
kind of that kind of stuff is cool. Coach Copeland's done a really good job the last few years building that program up. They finally got into their new facility. They've been playing in that middle school gym
Yeah.
for a few years now, which he doesn't like too much. But yeah, so that's cool. And then, but yeah, you run into that Langston team, and my goodness, they can guard and they can make you really confused and unstable offensively. So yeah, that was going to be a good matchup. Shreveport and Langston coming up.
Yeah, and on the bottom half of that bracket, it was mostly chalk. I mean, we saw the Huntington team who was that good line. I mean, that wasn't a shock to see them pull off of a win against America's darling, Antelope Valley. Antelope Valley, you know, wish all those players the best of luck, all the coaches best of luck. We hope they all find homes here soon. I know that again with them shutting down, it was cool to see them at least in the tournament. I'm sure that seeing a Huntington team come down who just a couple weeks ago knocked off number one Grace is probably not always your favorite matchup, but really fun game. And then you had an Arizona Christian team who escaped a win against St. Catherine, and then turned around and knocked off Huntington the next day. And then on the bottom side, you had chalk with Tennessee Southern and IWU. Indiana Wesleyan also had to go through a double overtime game to escape. And matter of fact, I think if I remember right, I know two of the three. I believe it was regulation, first overtime, and second overtime. They escaped a last second shot on every one of those to lose that.
Oh yeah, and one of those things was a really clean look. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, another one of those games where it's like opening round, maybe a little bit of jitters, who knows, but it was a packed gym. I mean, the
oh yeah,
gym was full yeah, they needed that, Wesleyan really dominated that second overtime. I mean, they really pulled away. They made some
yeah.
big plays early, one on that quick little 8-0 run or whatever it was to kick off that second overtime, and they pulled away. But man, hats off to Columbia. Going into a really difficult place to play in a crowded environment, and they went toe to toe with them and had them on the ropes for sure.
Yeah, and Colin Parker, the AMC Player of the Year, man,
Oh
he
yeah,
man when he enters the gym, he's in range. It was unreal watching some of those deep threes from that he was hitting,
yeah,
and especially at his size, it was a lot of fun to watch. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, rounding up the quadrant talk with the Liston quadrant here. College of Idaho, the defending national champs are still alive. We will talk a little bit more on the preview show, round of 16 preview show later on this week, but haven't had a repeat champ since 06-07, so they're a team that will be looking to do that. They played a Cornerstone team that had played really good basketball down the stretch, and I thought that Cornerstone really gave them a game, but just couldn't really get over that hump in that game to be able to knock them off. And then on the bottom side there, you had a Madonna team who actually had struggled a little bit. Losing in the championship game and then losing a couple games late, and then in that opening round game they were able to survive a Dordt team, and then again a Shawnee State team that gave them everything they could handle. So they I think both wins were by a total of 8 points in their two wins. So they're going to Kansas City off of the margin of 8 points right here. So
Yeah, yeah, they had a couple close ones. That's hard when you lose that conference tournament, end of the year, whatever it is. It's hard to find that momentum again. Find the winning habit again. There's winning becomes a habit, and finding ways to win becomes a habit. So I'm sure for the coaches and players, doesn't matter what the final score was. Like we said, they're headed to Kansas City. And congratulations, you get to head to Kansas City and play the defending national champs that have been looking pretty good as of late too. So,
yep, the good thing is you got a week to prepare, or a few days to prepare anyway. But the bad part is that you got to play a College of Idaho team that has been playing back to playing good basketball again. Bottom side of the bracket was basically chalk. I mean, you had all the top seeds win. You had a Georgetown team that came out and just punished all of that Nazarene in the opening round. Then Morningside in that at home They were a team that got up early on Lords and rode it out. And then in that Georgetown Morningside game was a lot of fun to watch. Morningside just is very tough to guard. I mean, especially off a 1 day scout. I mean, they just run so many
Yeah.
different sets and actions, and it's not like your typical like box sets. I mean, they're going to run little mid post flares, and then
Yeah.
they'll screen the screen interactions, and they just are tough to scout off of a 1 day scout. So. I thought that Georgetown did a good job of trying to compete and knocking down shots to stay in it, and they gave themselves a chance to win. But Morningside just man, when they're hitting those threes and their sets are because they set hard, tough screens too, so they're getting
Yeah.
guys open, and when they are hitting shots, they're very tough to beat.
Yeah, Morningside's like the definition of Iowa basketball. When I think about Iowa basketball, it's like it just has every part of the country has these little, style to them. And whenever I think about Iowa basketball, I think about teams like Morningside, Northwestern too. I mean, both those teams advanced and they just have their own brand out where I know that's your home country as well. So but yeah, I mean, we played them a few years back. I remember played them up at the Corn Palace, and I just scratching my head trying to figure out, what do you take away, and how do and as soon as you take that away, the next thing hits you, and they're just such a great system, and they move the ball, and they're unselfish kids, and so we won't get too much into matchups, but I talked about one early in that Grace Northwestern. There's a lot of things to highlight in. I think the other, GPAC squad, Morningside, this Morningside Cumberland's game is going to be another one that really catches my intrigue heading into the week. But we'll tease and get into all that later in the week, I know. So
Yeah, no doubt. And the bottom half the bracket. First off, I wanted to say that Morningside is a lot of Nebraska kids too, but I digress on the Iowa.
all right, well, don't get so defensive. All right, it's an Iowa school. When I think of Iowa hoops, there you go.
There
So
you
they
go.
must they much. Coach just teaches them quickly how to embrace Iowa. Nebraska, Iowa. Is that? I thought it was the same state. I didn't know you guys were
It,
two different
it is
states.
supposed to
So.
be. Yeah, I'm not even offended. No, but going down to the bottom side of this bracket, you mentioned Cumberland's. They're the ones that advanced out of their own region, Williamsburg, Kentucky region, or pod. You got Florida College, who Chase we've mentioned so many times has done such a great job with that
Yeah.
program, and got a good win over Marion. I thought Marion they guarded Marion really really well. Thought they were well prepared for Gus Etchison and company, they got the 84-71 win in the opening round, and then that Cumberland's game was such a good game, and Florida College was right there the whole time. Got a little foul trouble. I thought that kind of hurt them in a stretch of the second
Yeah.
half. But Cumberland's at the end of the day just had a little bit too much firepower and ended up advancing on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've told Chase before too. I mean, his team is built a lot like a Crossroads team in terms of the way that style of play and offensive efficiency and things like that. So I wasn't surprised to see them do really well. I thought that was actually a good matchup for them. Seeding could question a little bit, but the matchup was a pretty good matchup for them, and I think they proved it. I mean, they played a really good game, and not take anything away from Marion. I just thought Florida College really executed. They came out from the jump and played great. But yeah, Cumberland's Kentucky's tough. I mean, if you haven't watched them play, and some people haven't, I mean, we had Coach on, I know, in the preview show, and they're a really good team. They just don't make a lot of mistakes, and they're solid. And I think being at home probably helped them a little bit get over
Yeah,
the hump in that Florida College game too. But that's part of the way this tournament's structured. The host teams have a little bit of an advantage. So good to see them advance as well.
well, they're another team that doesn't have a lot of tournament experience, and so I think getting those first couple of wins underneath the belt now. Kansas City is a different beast, and we'll talk a little bit more on that preview show. But getting a couple wins underneath their belt kind of helps out a little bit. I think releases the nerves and all that. I think especially when you're a new program and not a new program, but you're not a national tournament or haven't made a ton of national tournament appearances and things like that. I think that plays a long ways. Um, you know, Now we're down to 16. We kind of talked about it. Interesting to see where they all come from. We got two teams each from the GPAC, the GSAC, Mid South, Cascade, Crossroads, and then the KCAC. So two teams each from there, and then the remaining teams are from the Red Rivers, the SAC, WAC and then the AMC. So yeah, 10 different conferences over 16 teams. So fairly spread out. I don't think we've ever.
Yeah.
I think the first year, maybe the COVID year, quote unquote COVID year, was the first year we maybe had 3 teams in Kansas City from the same league. But usually it's just 1 or 2 teams from a league, and certainly almost had a third one with Oregon Tech yesterday, but in the Cascade. But all in all, I feel like it's a really good field and a lot of fun teams in this one. I think anybody that's going to be watching in Kansas City or online is in for a lot of fun games here.
Yeah, fun games, great coaches. Again, so many good players we could highlight, and I'm sure we will highlight later this week. But and it's also fun. There's just different styles of play still mixed in here, right? There's some from all spread all over the country again too, which I like. You got some Arizona, some Idaho, some Louisiana, some Iowa, some Indiana. I mean, you got Michigan, you got pretty much the whole country, California represented. So I think that's really fun too, to see the entire country of NAIA come together and storm Kansas City for a better part of a week or 10 days there, and it'll be really, really good basketball. I can't speak it highly enough about it. I mean, I look at this list of teams, and I know a lot of those coaches that are there are going to be there, and they're all just class acts, and the kids that represent those programs are as well. So it should be just a lot of camaraderie and some great few days of basketball.
All in all, it's going to be a great week, and we'll have most of it, we'll have actually all of it covered here on the Round 16 preview show. Again, that one will actually be moving back over to the NEI YouTube channel. I appreciate everybody that watched our opening round preview show. I saw that the last count, I think we were almost at 1,200 views. So I just appreciate all of you paying attention to us and listening to us. I know that try to give the best content we can and best insights we can, and without you guys, listening and watching, we wouldn't be able to do that. So appreciate you guys, and until I think Thursday morning is when they'll launch the episode. This is Jeter and Coach Lubbers signing off.
We got it.